Hello. Back for another one. Here we go. Is there more to health than CrossFit? That's a big question coming from someone who loves CrossFit as much as I do. I started CrossFit, as backstory, in 2012 when I was a sophomore in college, and then I was competing. I started coaching, and then eventually I got hired at CrossFit HQ to work on the brand, which is what I'm still doing every day. So I go work out at 5:30, come home, work my day job, and then go back to the affiliate to coach a couple classes every week. And I fucking love it. That's how much I love it. I'm going to curse here. I love it. I have seen so many lives changed firsthand through CrossFit. The number of people who've come to me with tears in their eyes because they've just done something they never thought that they could do is just, I'm so grateful to be a part of this thing in the way that I am for that exact reason. This is why I come to work every day. I love it. So the question of, is there more to health than CrossFit, is it could be considered controversial, I guess, but hopefully the way that I'm going to explain this stuff clears some of that controversy up, nips it in the bud. Okay, so first things first. CrossFit has a definition for health, and I'm not trying to change the definition for health in that way. CrossFit defines health as work capacity across broad time and modal and age domains. And so I think that's a really utilitarian and beautiful, elegant definition of health because it is measurable, observable, repeatable. We actually get to test to see if we're making progress in our path to health. And so when I think about health in that way, what CrossFit has within the methodology is the absolute best way to achieve health. Constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity, and basically eating whole foods in the right quantities. I think that there's also other definitions of health, and we're limited by language because they're all kind of bucketed as health. So when I'm thinking of health, there's like the big H CrossFit definition that is very crystal clear. And then there's this more nebulous, intangible, messy human version of health that encompasses all the different dimensions: physical health, mental, emotional, spiritual, even social health. All of these things taken into account that give us the human experience that we have while we have this time on earth. And some people might not like that it is such a loose understanding of little h health because you can't measure it in that way. And it is 100% subjective. And even for an individual, it can change day to day, minute to minute, second to second. So when I use the word kylo, that's really what I'm referring to, because kylo is the etymological root for health, healing, and wholeness before this Descartesian split of body and mind, when we actually as humans understood health in this more comprehensive and holistic way. I want to be responsible on this channel, so I'm trying to put as much thought as I can before I actually hit record on this to make sure that I am addressing any potential concerns or misunderstandings and not just like showing up and talking. So if there is confusion around any of that or challenges or questions, let me know, because I want to engage in that kind of conversation. Okay, so that's kind of the preface for all of this. Is we're talking about kylo when I asked the question of, is there more to health than what CrossFit can offer? And for some people, that's all they need to feel this sense of wholeness. But I have a couple examples from my own personal journey where it hasn't been enough, quote unquote enough. Okay, so first off, in 2023, I discovered that I had a bladder tumor. I had to have surgery, have it removed, and it was diagnosed as cancer, and then they flipped the diagnosis, but that's a story for another show. But basically, someone of the health profile that I have, it made absolutely no sense to the doctors why I would have a tumor. They actually said that people like me are the reason that they change their practices. They change their mind about the practice. Not a single doctor believed that someone who was, 33 at the time, could have a tumor like that. There's a lot of factors that probably went into creating the internal environment where I would be growing a tumor. Partially genetic, potentially, even though a lot of doctors said that there's not a whole lot of evidence for bladder tumors to be genetic. But I think also the fact that I am just kind of that person who is pretty disconnected from my body for a very long time and from tending to the inner environment. So when you get into that state for years, layered on years, chances are that your hormones and your nervous system might be kind of dysregulated. That could contribute to the growth of an unwanted tumor. I'm not saying that's exactly why, but I don't really have a better explanation than that, and I probably will never know. I'm okay now. I just go get it checked every year or so. But that's just one example, right? And I know that there are plenty of stories like that in the CrossFit community. So that's why like cancer screenings early are so important. Even if you have optimal health on paper, doing screenings like that or paying attention to when your body is chirping a little bit and self-advocating is really important. That was a big wake-up call to begin to respect that there's more to health, at least for me, than just what you can get from doing CrossFit every day. An even more common example of where this shines through in my own journey is that I had depression and anxiety for a lot of my adult life. It was pretty cyclical. Some seasons were heavier than others. Now I don't have depression and anxiety, and I 100% attribute that to the fact that I have been tending to the inner landscape for the last couple years more than I ever had in the past. Obviously, I'm not perfect and I still have really hard days, really hard seasons, but there's a difference for me between waking up with the weighted blanket and the lens that either depression or anxiety can leave you with versus not having it now. Mental illnesses are unfortunately very common in our world today. And while training hard and eating well can help create the right environment to mitigate any of the symptoms that would come from mental illness, I do think that there's still probably plenty of people who that doesn't work for, and I was one of those people. There is a lot of evidence, I will say now, around again that connection between body and mind. And so like the work of Dr. Chris Palmer, that metabolic health is mental health because it's literally what happens on a cellular level. CrossFit is very important to be able to create the right environment, but it doesn't mean that it is foundational or requisite. I think that there's probably plenty of people out there who have really healthy mental and emotional lives and rather unhealthy physical, and vice versa. You know what's cool is I actually do think a lot of people in the CrossFit community would agree with this concept and in some ways are already practicing this concept. And I know that like affiliates and coaches in the CrossFit space really do care about the humans in their gym every day. It's obviously not their scope of practice to necessarily provide all of the resources for this kind of change. So my question is not necessarily about what do we do as coaches or anything like that. It's more like awareness for us as individuals. My hope here is to really expand the conversation so we can start to understand or we can start to explore body and mind and spirit as all different spokes coming from the same wheel of human health and wholeness. So I started to put together a little mental model and maybe I'll flash it up here. Will thinking about things in this way work for everyone? No. Has it worked for me? Yeah, and there's still a lot more to explore. I'm starting to see a shift in the conversations I have with people. It makes me really hopeful. There's more to health in the Kylo sense of health than just what happens in your external environment with things you can control through your lifestyle. That's what I got. This is Jeff, by the way. We'll see you next time.